What we see in Gaza right now is a catastrophe, an absolute catastrophe that is impacting the millions of people that have been blockaded within Gaza now for literally decades. The response from Australia to the actions of the State of Israel, which, let's remember, is a key ally, has been absolutely woeful. What we have seen is a policy response from the State of Israel, which has been and continues to be unacceptable, and a reaction to that from the Israeli government, which has been to make blanket statements basically supporting the State of Israel in its invasion of Gaza, in its treatment of innocent civilians, and repeatedly worked on the global stage to slow down or prevent international action to restore a just peace. So that is why the Australian community is so disappointed and angry, quite frankly, at the Australian government when they see them not only refuse to call for an end to the genocide and an end to the crimes against humanity and war crimes, but also watch them cut funding to the very organizations working right now to keep Palestinians alive on the ground in Gaza, while at the same time continuing to provide support and weapons to the Israeli Defense Forces, even though that organization has been accused of, credibly, and found guilty of, in many instances, serious war crimes and crimes against humanity.
And what do you think the government can do right now to make a difference for the people of Gaza?
So we are calling on the government to take a number of immediate actions right now. First of all, to restore funding immediately to UNRWA and to increase the funding that they are providing to UNRWA. Sanctions need to be placed by the Australian government upon the entire war cabinet, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And we need to see Australia join South Africa in its genocide, in the main stage now of its genocide case at the International Criminal Court. So those are three tangible actions which they can take right now, in addition to recognizing the statehood of Palestine, as the Labour Party platform calls on them to do, and ending its cooperation, the Australian government's cooperation with the Israeli Defence Force, including ending all exports of Australian arms to the State of Israel.
Peter Dutton accused the Greens Party of anti-Semitic rhetoric in Parliament. What do you make of this response from the Liberals?
I think that it is very important to recognise the reality that anti-Semitism in Australia is very real and on the rise. And then this is the critical point. Over the last 5 years particularly, there has been a significant increase in far-right activity in Australia and an increase in specifically anti-Semitic treatment, language towards Jewish people, and that is unacceptable and must be condemned. It is also important to acknowledge that the rise of anti-Semitism comes in a context in Australia where we see Islamophobia also significantly on the rise within our community. And in that context, I think it is despicable of Peter Dutton to label those who advocate for the justice and humanity of Palestinian people as anti-Semitic. That is absolutely unacceptable, and it is not something worthy of an Australian political leader. Now, are we surprised? Absolutely not. Peter Dutton is a far-right political creature, far-right political figure, who has, for his entire career, sought to demonize and divide those who argue for the basic humanity of people who are marginalized, whether they be refugees from Syria, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, fleeing conflicts that we helped create, trying to find a home in Australia, whether they be members of the Sudanese community, whom he has so disgracefully slandered during his political career. And now we see advocates of Palestine coming into his focus. I would suggest that if he needs to, get a sense of what hate speech looks like in Australia in politics, to quote a former Prime Minister, he doesn't need a motion or a statement in the House, he needs a mirror.
And seeing this response from the community be so divided, as well as in Parliament, and seeing all of this destruction and suffering happening so far away is hard to deal with. What's affected you the most about this conflict?
I think what has affected me most has been a combination of witnessing through television and through your phone, on the ground in real time, this incredible destruction of humanity, particularly of children, and simultaneously watching our government excuse it, ignore it, support it, certainly fail to do what was in their power to prevent it, while at the same time watching community or participating as community in Australia organised to push back on that complicity and support and indifference in ways that we've never seen before.
We've seen tens of thousands of Australians march for Palestine week after week, month after month, since October of last year. What would your message be to those who are marching?
My message to those who are marching is that the Australian Greens are with you in solidarity, and that together I am confident that we are making our demands and our presence felt in the Australian political system and here in Canberra. If we continue this work together, then we will achieve change in the Australian government policy. They think that if they hold out long enough, then people will go back to living and thinking and moving through life as they were before. If we can continue this pressure together and prove them wrong, then I think this can be a watershed moment for Palestinian rights in Australia.